Please mute yourself and save your questions until the end. And for those of you who are first time with us and wondering who we are, Serverless Toronto started 8 years ago as a meeting place for function as a service developer, but during COVID, we migrated to online format. And over the time, we realized that we can help businesses by working smarter, not by sprinting faster. So we started defining serverless as a pragmatic mindset, not just a tech stack. It is a way to focus on business value. And this broad definition of serverless allows us to explore various IT topics. And if you visit our YouTube channel, you can check years of educational content, much of it still relevant. And the next month, exact date is to be defined. We are hosting Val Andre. He's ML researcher and ex-Llama Index founding engineer and Manning author. He will teach you how to build multi-agent systems from scratch. So keep an eye on the inbox for the date. And if you have ideas for the topics or want to present, let us know. There is a survey at bit.ly/SLSTO to fill in and let us know what you want to learn about next, and hope to see you there. And last but not least, big thank you for Mining Publications. They're supporting us as a knowledge sponsor long time. They generously donate one title at every meetup, but today, because it's 8 years of the group, they're donating 8 free titles. There is no need to do survey this time. I will just drop 8 coupons at the end, so you can rate us on meetup.com. So Meetup would promote this group to more good people like you. And for those who are not lucky to get 100% off product, Mining has this 45% off code for any of their digital products. So scan the barcode and enjoy the savings. And before I pass microphone to our guest presenters, let me explain why this topic. So for 8 years, we've been teaching how of technology, but AI got so good in how that the hard part has shifted. The hard part is now what to build, when humans still matter, and where the value is moving. So that's why I invited 3 Canadian practitioners today. Each of them will cover one angle. Julia will cover why, Zayyan will cover how, and Mark will cover where. So why, then how, then where. So 20 minutes each, and then we'll do a panel question and answer at the end. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Julia, the floor is yours. That's me. Julia, you're muted.
All right.
Hello.
I'll share my screen. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes.
And this is all, the favorite part of post-COVID world. Can you hear me? Am I sharing, right? All of those things. So hopefully I'll set it up and share. And let me know if you can see it. All good?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right. So a pleasure to meet you. And for me, I think when Daniel invited me, we wanted to talk about the why we're doing things. Even though I have a computer science background, I thought I was going to be a developer, but then at some point I switched to business analysis because that's exactly what I wanted to understand. Why are we choosing this solution? Why are we doing this? Why we're doing this in this way? Because when it comes down to money, we want to build solutions that actually are useful, that bring return on investment, that help organizations be better. And that's why I ended up becoming a business analyst and then an architect. And I think that in the age of AI, these requirements and understanding why we are doing it is even more important because everyone is running after this, next big shiny thing, and everybody wants AI. And when I work as consultant with corporate clients, I hear this refrain, oh, let's use some AI, let's build something with AI. And it doesn't matter what, but we want to be on a bandwagon. And as a result, companies often invest money in something that will never be used, or they don't even understand, or is not going to be useful because they're just not choosing the right technology. So I think that's why it's so important to really understand why we're building it. I'll skip it. We already talked about introductions. So, when we talked with DAMA about embedded analytics, I started with this dormant fallacy. It's not my invention. It's from this book by Rory Sutherland. But it's really interesting and applicable because when you look at the doorman, and if you're a consultant, or if someone is a consultant looking and they want to consult this hotel chain on creating some efficiencies. They might think, well, here's a doorman, they just open and close the doors, can be automated. Their main function is easily automatable. Let's save some money for the organization. And of course, you can put in an automated door. It will open and close. You can program it to whatever schedule you like. You can put a lot of AI and automation into this automated door. However, the question is it going to replace the doorman? And if you think about what the function of this person is, of this role of the doorman is, there are many other things that they do. They may be enhancing security just by being there and by showing that there is some human here who is supposed to react and see what's going on. They are greeting guests, and we're all human. We like to be greeted by human beings. And if you are a beautiful hotel which charges a lot of money, you probably want to be greeting your important guests personally, and that's part of that image. A doorman may hail taxis or help customers coming in and out in many ways, such as helping them with the stairs, etc. It was really interesting when I was thinking about it and reading of it. A presence of a doorman also discourages bad behavior. Because again, there is this perception that someone is watching, someone is here, someone can react, so it actually deters bad behavior that otherwise with an empty automated door, may be more bold. And finally, a presence of a doorman will also imply quality and prestige and, be a certain expectation for, at a hotel catering to guests in a specific segment. So all of these are additional functions that are not necessarily visible if you try to analyze the function of a doorman, and without asking questions, without analysis, without maybe standing next to the doorman and watching what they're doing all day, which we call in business analysis immersion or job shadowing. A consultant or an analyst may not realize that all of these other functions are as important. And if you just automate the opening the door function, you actually are going to be losing functionality, and your company or your client will potentially lose some value. And I think that's a really, really good analogy for why we still need understanding why things need to be automated and what truly are essential requirements. Because again, automation is not necessarily a requirement. A requirement is we want to fulfill a certain business function. We want our business to be more efficient. We want our business to be making money. But again, how you need to look at the company as a whole and not at one particular step in a particular process. So that's why I think even though everyone wants to take AI and replace existing functions and processes and tools and equipment and people with AI and call it automation, we should really be changing an angle and talking about augmentation, how we can augment business processes and people and various behaviors with technology for the benefit of the business. And sometimes augmentation in the long run is more advantageous than full automation. So you could augment the function of this doorman, for example, by providing them with timely information, such as when a customer is coming out of a taxi, you already know what is their name and that they are a VIP customer, and paying attention that they're greeted properly and maybe called by their own name. If there is a delay at the elevators and you're standing with your back to the elevators, would it not be nice to know? And when someone is coming in, maybe engage them in a chit chat so that they don't actually see the elevator delay, or giving them a message or taking some action that will actually improve customer experience. Perhaps there is a traffic jam on one side or the other of the hotel, and if you see a person taking a taxi or going a certain way, you can inform them. So imagine of all these different analytics and useful information that can be provided to the doorman to do their job better and more efficiently, instead of replacing them with that faceless door. And maybe there is a food delivery or maybe any other function where if you have that information as a purple, because you're the friend to the customer. Those are all different ways to use analytics, technology, AI to augment existing functions and again making your workers more efficient. And I think even though this is just an analogy and it's a hotel business, we have to think about that analogy for many other things that happen in businesses today. And that's why, I talk a lot about business analytics. I know we all love the word AI. But again, we can be technical about it and what can or cannot be called AI and what we could be calling analytics and predictive analytics and next best action. But if you think about it, if you're analyzing your customer's business or your company's business, as an analyst or developer or an architect, you need to be looking at which steps in a business process actually require improvement. What exactly is fumbling, which steps are bottlenecks, which steps are problematic, where are we making most mistakes, which steps cause us to lose money, to lose customers, to lose quality of our product or service or whatever it is we're doing. So we need to look at that business process and various steps and which of these require additional insights, whether you get it from running a machine learning model or just delivering some diagnostic insight. So a business analyst now talk more and more about analytics integrated into the business process and delivered within the context. And I think that's the amazing thing that AI solutions can give to business, because if you think back 20 years, and I know I've been in many organizations in those 20 years, business people have dashboards, and those dashboards on Power BI platforms, Tableau platforms, or God forbid, actually in PDFs that they receive once a month in an email as a monthly report. So sometimes if you're working on something and you need an insight, you may need to turn around and literally log in, open another window, or navigate somewhere and search for that insight and look for the dashboard and look for some additional information about this customer. And a reality is people don't do that much, because every time there's friction, every time you want to turn around and look to another place, it's not going to work, right? People waste time they don't want. They're being watched. They're being measured on their throughput and how many cases they process. So bringing analytics into the business process is a great advantage that modern solutions can give us. And if that insight is powered by machine learning, by predictive model, by something that recommends the best action, and yeah, you can call it AI because, of course, business stakeholders love to hear the word, but bringing that insight back to people doing their job every day, I think that's what brings value. So we want this analytics embedded into business process and delivered within the context, which means I just get the insight for this specific case that I'm working on right now, and I don't need to search and filter and sort, and I want it just in time. And I think that's where the great intersection of new technologies that many of you folks seem to be working on can be powered up with business analysis and with understanding where this technology should be delivered, at what part of the process, at what step you want that insight to get to the business person. Because again, just going and chatting with Copilot or with another solution is not going to be the same, because you have to make an effort to do it. So when we used to build as analysts and developers, right, we would have events in real life, and then data is collected about those events. For example, a customer is calling. This data is stored in operational systems. Then you have insights, which are usually generated in analytical systems, which could be at a totally another platform. And eventually business intelligence users will be making some business decisions, and that will be based on insights in these analytical systems. So that was the flow. And by the time you get to the decision, you get this latency. First, you have latency from recording the data. Then there is additional latency while this data is being passed to analytical systems and analyzed. And then there is decision latency, because someone needs to look at this insight or receive this insight or filter and sort for this insight and then decide what to do. And that latency is, of course, too much. So we used to build this, and we used to focus on these operational systems. But I think part of what we want to encourage, and again, from both sides, right, from business analysis and from development architecture, is how can we bring those insights into the process, so into our operational systems. And that's what I call embedded, right? So that insight, if it's delivered here to the worker in the context at that moment when they actually are doing their job or processing a case or processing a ticket, that's what companies need more. And this is something that can actually be evaluated for return on investment. This is something that can be a visible benefit, which sometimes is lacking when companies first, try to implement AI in some way, shape, or form. So we want those decisions to move to that moment in time and to happen more in operational systems, because operational systems are getting insights, analytical insights at the right time, right? Instead of this, because that happens way later and maybe doesn't have value anymore. So when we talk about embedded analytics and AI, we want to integrate those capabilities directly into the business process, directly into the operational systems such as CRM and ticket management and inventory management and supply management, and bring those insights back in. And again, with the potential of AI solutions and the powerful predictive models that now are being built, that becomes so much more real than it used to be. So I had another example when I was thinking about it, about augmentation versus automation. And I remember a couple of years ago where, everyone was writing about who AI can replace and what types of workers AI solutions can replace. There was some talk about, digital scans, like ultrasounds and MRIs, and AI algorithms turned out to be really, really good at detecting patterns in all of those scans. So I was just reading in this a couple of weeks ago in February, how now we can understand better that AI doesn't have to replace all of these technicians that look at the scans, but instead it can augment their work. So AI is really good at, for example, interpreting medical scans. There's plenty of training data, of course. It's all based on patterns. And AI can detect subtle patterns better than humans. So if a human is looking at this with a magnifying glass, of course, an algorithm has capacity to detect something tinier and at smaller scale. So definitely there is a good use case for using AI. But then if you think about it, AI can actually help instead of replace. The algorithm can prioritize scans and determine which scans require immediate attention based on the patterns detected, so that then you can bring medical professionals in. It can enhance image quality, and that was really interesting because when I was reading about it, it can result in being able to use machines to make more scans more quickly, because a quick scan may be a little bit lighter on quality, but it would be sufficient for an AI algorithm to produce the same accuracy or even higher accuracy of results, and then prepare summary reports. So as a result, you can actually do more scans faster and cheaper. And this is one of the problems today in the medical field, that people have to wait for a long time for their scans, and sometimes the results take a while to deliver. So I think that it's really interesting that if you look at it from analysis perspective and the customer experience perspective, there are ways of augmenting without replacing that actually bring more benefit. And this is where business analysis and understanding of business requirements comes in, right? You want to get that human in the loop to make a diagnosis, to conduct physical exam, to talk to patient. And this all comes from you analyzing the process, right? The process doesn't start and end with analyzing the scan. That's just one little step. But the whole process of providing diagnostics for the customer includes booking that scan and talking to patient and explaining things to them, taking that scan, analyzing it. But then again, there are steps after, like diagnosis, physical appointment, discussion, and so on. So that whole process does not get replaced by AI. Just some of those steps do, but the process itself can benefit. So human in the loop has specific functions that are things that humans do better. Then AI in the loop can be, again, doing more scans in less time, take new measurements, and do a more precise comparison for previous scans. Again, these two are some of the interesting tasks that AI inherently can do better. For example, like measuring volume of tumors, right? So looking at any business process and different types of requirements with business analysis perspective, I think becomes even more valuable, because if we end up with too many solutions that are not bringing return on investment, then the companies that actually have funding may become disappointed or not do it, or they have a couple of projects that didn't bring benefit and then they will not do another one. So we really want to think about what is the business process that we want to improve or enhance. We want to do some process mining, which is another area where AI and machine learning is amazing, right? To analyze and mine large volumes of data, for example, all the time steps of all the events and activities that happened in this process over and over to discover the bottlenecks. What is automatable? And I think this is important. We want to automate those business process steps where AI outperforms humans, like in this digital scans example. So looking for where AI can do the job better, but also look at core human activities where humans do better than AI. And I think that understanding where AI and humans outperform each other is also part of what we can help businesses to acquire. Because again, when each time there is a new hype cycle, sometimes the pendulum swings too much one way, and we try to replace everything. So understanding where humans outperform AI and how to maintain and augment those activities so that humans can do a better job is really important. And from all that, we need clear business requirements, right? We still need requirements. We still need to outline what is the true business need, because when there's a discussion about priority and different design options and the sequencing of the delivery and even change management, which includes maybe explaining to potential users how they should use this new tool, you need to understand the requirements of what is it that your business users actually need. What do they need to do their job? What do they need to serve their customers, and so on. And then in that way, you're going to be making better solutions. So focusing on augmentation of this process, evaluating different options, and then optimizing so that this process retains, the steps where humans do better, but then, augmenting those other steps. So I think that for if you work with business analysts, or if you don't work with business analysts, I hope that you will rope someone in to help. Business analysts these days really, really are conscious of the AI revolution, and they study data management fundamentals and understanding types of analytics and AI capabilities, weaknesses, risks, like all of those ethical implications. Understanding machine learning modeling and data architecture, analytics platforms and pipelines and organizations, all of this comes in. And I think when we work on projects as analysts and architects in collaboration with developers and with AI engineers, if you look at all of those different areas, we can actually define requirements for AI projects that will help to make it a better product. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? We want a better product. We want to understand, different types of analytics that are required for different steps in this process. For example, where you need metrics, where you need to do diagnostics, where you need prediction and recommendation and decision automation, etc. So that's me plugging in for business analysts and for clear requirements and for really, really looking at bringing value to the organization and not thinking of saving money with the proverbial goal, but thinking about business success, which is combination of being more efficient and making customers happier and making the world a better place, and so on. So since Daniel, you mentioned mindset, I couldn't help plugging in business analyst mindset, which I think applies not just to business analysts, but to all professionals in software and in process improvements and in consulting, where you focus on the right goals and you question things and you analyze before you jump to conclusions and so on. You can find it on my website. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I just wanted to say that thinking of the best solution and what is the problem that we need to solve. So why we are solving this problem, I think that's where we want to go. All right, I'm gonna jump over all the promos and give the page back to you, Daniel, because I know I have limited time. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you think now or later.
Thank you. Amazing. It's great to have you here. And like we were doing originally, giving kudos to Serverless Toronto community, but this is a fusion of other communities as well. I met Julia at DAMA conference, the data management conference, and every metropolitan area has one. I regularly attend their meetings here and meet wonderful people like herself. Then the next presenter, Zayyan, comes from another community. So if you're logging like 3D, real human to human in-person events, AI Thinkers is global across North America, and the Toronto chapter organizes 8 talks every month. And I met Zayyan over there, and it's a perfect segue from what Yulia was talking into his use case. So Zayyan, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Much for a nice intro, Daniel. Hey, everybody. My name is Zayyan Ahmed, and as Daniel had mentioned, I am an AI tinker of sorts. I have a product management consultancy, of course, working on some pretty interesting stuff with foundation models these days. So today, I'd like to talk through AI, which is a research project, open source project that is built off some of the, say, cutting edge, bleeding edge work that's being done by researchers coming out of Germany. And I won't spoil too much. I'll jump right into the slides and show what's what. All right. So when it comes to AI, this is, as I mentioned, a open source framework and research project that I'm working on with the core team. And really what we're looking to do is build a seamless service between human experts and reviewers with their AI agent counterparts in agentic workflows. And I'll explain a little bit more what that looks like. We'll get to a little bit of demo later on. And what we're doing is we're building up the work done on the Centaur Foundation model. So this is a completely new foundation model created by a team from the Institute for Human-Centered AI in Munich, Helmholtz, Munich. And really what they do, the idea behind this Centaur Foundation model is it is trained on over 300 psychological experiments to be able to make a foundation model for human cognition. So it's not just limited to predicting what someone will do in a psychological experiment, but rather how a human would think about a situation, any situation, broadly applicable. And the idea is to use this foundation model to make transitions between humans and AI agents more seamless with reduced cognitive load. So if you have an AI that can kind of think like you might think, then it's aligned with you on a really subconscious level. And from there, you can kind of trust it a little bit more to be able to do the things that you want to do. So that leads us into that cognitive load piece, right? So the hypothesis of this study, and what we're trying to do is we're running a study in Q1, and the goal is to publish a paper on this subject. The hypothesis is really as follows. If an LLM trained on psychology data predicts human decisions with, let's say, greater than 80% accuracy, then humans can make better decisions faster in an agentic application using a proxy agent framework. So I can trust that this proxy agent is going to make the decisions that I would make, right? And the idea behind that is falls to the secondary hypothesis that because I can trust it when I'm experiencing those repetitive LLM training and decision-making workflow where I have to go and I have to see what the LLM decision was made, approve it, review it, I'll benefit from a predictive decision framework that reduces that decision fatigue and cognitive load. So if I can already know that, let's say out of 100 reviews, 90% of them are highly aligned and the LLM is returning that this is really quite aligned with how I think. And of course, I'll still review that, but it's a lot faster. And it can flag for me which are those maybe 10% which are failing and which need a little bit more of a deep dive. That way, it's not like every single one I'm looking at is the same. And let's say some of the more difficult situations or more finesse concepts, they need to be, they'll be missed because I have kind of gotten, you could say, like that road hypnosis where I'm just going down and I'm just seeing and I start missing details. That's the idea behind that. So the idea is that we are looking for more people to join our team, and we are also looking for partners from universities, companies, and so on. So definitely, anyone has the opportunities in that view, definitely good to chat about that. But before we jump in, talk about all that, let's get to what we built so far. I'm just going to share with you my 1 second here. I have to. I'm not a Zoom expert, so I have to find out where that stop sharing button is. There we go. Okay. I'll share with you a high-level diagram of how this works, and then we'll go into the actual demo. All right, thanks. So looking at the high-level design, what we've really targeted for this project is a mental health use case. Now, this can be applied, as I mentioned, 2 different use cases, but for now, we're really focusing on one, and that's mental health. And the idea here is that in, for example, a Healthline AI chat, and we'll go through a demo, and you just see what this looks like when you're kind of clicking around. But the idea is that you might have in a typical Healthline chat, your patient, end user, there you have a medical admin agent, you might have a proxy agent and your classic kind of proxy agent workflow, multi-agent workflow, and you have your human reviewer. And you might even have your human experts, which are helping train or fine-tune your models. So where we fit in here is that we have a decision framework aligned with a actual Centaur decision prediction model and some data sources to be able to plug into your kind of classic AI agent workflow and being able to then feed back some confidence scores. And the idea here is if you, for example, have a confidence threshold of greater than 90%, your proxy agent can run autonomously and push through kind of your standard basic daily requests and requirements. And then anything that's more advanced, the reviewer might need to confirm the information has been collected, patient has been routed correctly, and the reviewer can then review from there, and we can go into those details. So a lot of data on this, but that's the main thing I wanted to talk about. There's things like confidence scores, retraining, and you can take a look at this on the GitHub. And once we are, I'll post a link in the call chat, and you can take a look and deep dive into this later. But looking into what this looks like for a user, we'll go to like the patient view first. So here we have a mental health support session. You have your patient who's saying, I've been feeling really anxious lately, and I got this response here, right? So from the expert view, you can see that they have some cases pending review, and they have them prioritized, and we can see that actually this case has failed. It is not past the expert proxy agent gate, and it has failed to actually succeed. So I'm going to go and view this. You can see here that the AI wants to return this result. However, it has failed the clinical accuracy and decision alignment gate. And a lot of existing workflows, they will have multiple evaluations. So we've spoken with some potential partners and some providers, and they will have, of course, their safety assessment. So making sure it passes some safety guardrails, and they'll have their clinical accuracy knowledge base that needs alignment with, right? And then that's where we fit in, is that decision alignment. How far does this align with actually the way the reviewer would actually approach this outside of the actual knowledge and context? So what does this look like? How do we get to the point where we get to return this confidence score, right? I'll show you this in this quick demo here. So this is a kind of front end to show what the back end looks like when we are extracting decisions and feeding them to our central model. So you can see here that I'll just copy in the user's feelings about being like really anxious, about work deadlines, and find out what kind of decisions would we want to make in terms of echoing back some next steps. So our engine works to analyze the decision and extract a decision from the input. And the center model works similar to, has multiple different ways of approaching like decision making. Like it has like a Maggie's farm, multi-arm bandit. There's all these different experimental methods it uses to analyze and create decisions. But one of the most simple ones is multiple choice. So you have a scenario and you have few different options, and we'll run multiple simulations to give a score of confidence based on which is the best solution and best aligned with how a human might think. We'll go ahead and get the AI prediction for this. So the AI has predicted with a relatively high confidence that this would be a decision that will be aligned with kind of like your first step of how to approach this. So, short-term medication after consulting a doctor, like that's a little bit too far. Self-help strategies definitely is like your point one, and seeking mental health professional, talking to a manager, certainly key to keep in mind, but it's the first thing you want to go with is this. The idea here is that the center model would then pass along this decision to SciAI. SciAI would then give the options here and provide that conversation and give you a decision alignment. And then from there, as a reviewer, you can kind of quickly rip through these and be able to actually see what is highly aligned versus not aligned. So that is really what I wanted to talk about today. And I'll go back to my slide. Definitely have some time for some questions, but the idea here is that we really are doing some foundational work. We're working with foundation model, working on some pretty cutting edge stuff. And this is active development from that team in Munich as well. So they are adding additional capabilities like aligning on a per person basis. So the way Daniel thinks might be different from the way John thinks, and so on. Putting in the demographic data to further align a decision outside of just a kind of generic how a human might think to how an individual might think. And we're aligned with that and pushing forward on this research. So yeah, that's it from me today. Open any questions, or maybe I've also, I don't know if I went over time, just jump right to Mark.
Yeah. So we'll save questions for the end for now. So let me introduce Mark now. So thank you so much. This was perfect segue from why into how you approach it. And then we have a kind of step up on the hill and see where industry is going. And it's, again, this is 8th anniversary of Serverless Toronto, but there is another community like Mark's community, AI-dopters community. And if you're an AI, you surely saw some of his videos. But he has a community where kind of you can talk to him, to interact with other members and learn. And I don't know, like you produce so much content, I have a hard time catching up, Mark, but please introduce yourself. So
for sure, I appreciate the warm intro. Yeah, so Mark Kashef, I run a consultancy called Prompt Advisors. Was just me for a while, and then now we're luckily at 8 folks in total. And we've been working on AI consulting, AI custom development projects, now starting to get into government contracts. And then I do quite a bit of YouTube. I run a now 900 plus person community where I try to cover the gamut with my team on AI in general, voice, especially Claude Code. That's really where I lean in. So that's where we're going to see this presentation taking us. So I'm going to be very forthcoming with what I see going in the industry and where I think your attention should lie. And there's a little bit of an interesting thing I noticed. So Zayyan might not remember me, but I actually did a project for Zayyan 4 to 3 years ago, um, on Fiverr when I was a freelancer building a custom GPT for his PIM thing. So it's a very small world. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. So y'all can see my screen? Perfecto. All right. So the biggest theme of the year that I think that anyone that is on the bleeding edge and the cutting edge is agentic workflows. And now I'm going to use I'm going to say Claude Code, but it doesn't matter to me what the name is. The space changes so much that today it could be Claude, tomorrow it could be Codex, the next day it could be Gemini. The name does not matter, but the paradigm does matter. So agentic workflows, just to define them, we went from 2022, where we were kind of just discovering things like 3.5 ChatGPT Turbo, getting to 4, and then in 2023, the biggest things were custom GPTs, RAG pipelines, embeddings, everything around that. In 2024, all of a sudden, the big revolution was now your chatbot could make tool calls. And then we had the first agent frameworks. So I remember still doing freelance work, and then people were paying me to set up agent GPT for them. And that was like the hottest thing at the time. People thought that was the moment. And then it turned out that it was not the moment. And in 2025, we got a huge gift from the likes of Claude Code and similar. It was Claude Code's first anniversary, I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago, first birthday. And they went from something that's pretty innocuous just for developers to now our highest request across every industry is please create a workshop for our entire team. That includes devs, non-devs, and project managers to use Claude Code because this is the extra step. This goes past no-code platforms. It goes past ChatGPT or anything of that sort, or even Claude projects. And one small microcosm. Now, the stock market is irrational. It's a very known fact, but it was extremely irrational over a month ago when all Anthropic did was release 11 plugins. And if you're not aware with what a plugin is a basket of skills and what are called slash commands, which are basically shortcuts to execute workflows. There was nothing crazy about them. All of them were markdown files, like nothing revolutionary. And yet they signaled to the stock market that there was one plugin for law, one plugin for healthcare, one plugin for tech, and it basically was understood as a proxy for automating a lot of these micro tasks of these roles. So eventually, so many people started using Claude Code who were not coders or technical people that they came out a few months ago with Cowork. And the irony here that sends the signal why agentic workflows are so important is Claude Cowork is actually built by Anthropic using Claude Code. So no one actually writes by hand developer code to make this consumer product. And this consumer product is becoming one of the most popular amongst enterprise. And I'm firsthand understanding that because we've even had discussions with Fortune 500 companies who are looking at Cowork as the best gateway drug to get non-technical people to appreciate agentic workflows. And if you're not as familiar with the ecosystem and how it works, they have things like MCP servers, which right now, even though it's a year old, is dated in terms of industry standard. The real trend that we're now going towards are skills. So you might have seen that on LinkedIn. You might have heard about what skills are. In general, skills are literally still a markdown file with pure language wrapping a series of text or Python functions or JavaScript functions. So these plugins are a proxy for a basket of tasks, roles, and responsibilities of actual roles in companies. So when we talk about the future, because my background was in machine learning for 6 or 7 years, I worked as a data scientist at multiple companies in Toronto, senior and then junior data scientist. I kind of went the whole gamut. A lot of my job that I was paid six figures to do, 9 to 5, can be done today where it would take me 2 to 3 weeks for machine learning from data prep, ingestion, creating your training set, validation set, to your test set, to KPIs, to monitoring and modeling, and setting up something like ML flow for observability. That can all be done in a matter of hours now. Like you can literally go, I'm not going to say the word one shot, that would be an exaggeration, but you can get 80% of the way there that would otherwise have taken me 2, 3 weeks. And at some point, data scientist was the sexiest job alive. It was even in Times Magazine, I think in 2018 or 19, that was the sexiest job title. And today, I would say a lot of data scientist and data analyst jobs, I won't comment on the relevancy because it depends on the company, on the tacit knowledge. That's really where AI fails. It doesn't know the business. It doesn't know the SOPs. It doesn't know the skeletons in the closet, right? It's always assuming a very blank slate. But we will live in a world where we will need less of the 60% in the middle and more, or at least maybe stable amount of those that can really wield this at a very high level. So people have this very coping statement, and I'm a very blunt person. AI won't take your job, but someone who knows AI will. That is the coping mechanism. I would say all of these are temporal, meaning for now, this is correct. So this is the moment of time where the majority of us should embrace things like agentic workflows, irrespective of the provider. You can even use open source agentic workflows. That's completely up to kind of like your prerogative. But this is going to make a huge transformational change in the industry across every job that can have some form of SOPs. The only jobs that I see exploding, and I meet all kinds of people who are getting jobs, is in cybersecurity. Penetration testers, cybersecurity, that is going to be very hot. And even if AI comes up with great coding models, there are so many holes. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. As it creates smarter coding models to fix security and penetration testing, it will, in the process, because it's a language model, not actually intelligent, it will make mistakes. It has to. It's very predictive, even with reasoning. So we will get into the world where we will have 1% models, and then we will have the 80% models. And the 1% probably will be unbelievably expensive. A lot of people extrapolate that intelligence, hyperintelligence, will go down over time. So far, it looks like that if you look at the graphs. But if you have a monopoly in any industry, if there is one winner, I don't know if the cost will continue going down asymptotically to zero. So it's important to understand the fundamentals because this will be a relevant skill and it's going to remain. It's not going to disappear. This is not a fad. You will maybe hear a different version of this word because I've now heard context engineering. Someone told me the next day, yesterday, it's now called harness engineering. The semantics will change, but the concept remains pretty much the same. So agentic workflows at a high level is you have an agent plan, use tools, and iterate. If Claude Code is the example, it has like a 3-step process. It gathers requirements, it acts, and then it verifies what it did. And if it did it wrong, or did it wrong or encounters an error, it will loop back to act. And it's able to go into this loop without it having an endless loop. So there is intelligence kind of injected in there. Is it perfect? No. But it is concerningly getting like incredibly good. And just this morning, I'm going to risk sharing my screen here, even though it might lag. Just as an example, I just made, let's say in my community, we have like our first anniversary tomorrow. So I made a website and I connected my Claude Code to Telegram. So while I was walking my dog, I gave it all my specs for what I want the website to look like. I want it to be connected to Supabase. I want to create an edge function to store everything. And it built this entire web page, which looks decent. It actually stores it in the database. And this was a voice note sent on Telegram. 3 years ago, this would be a labor of love or hiring a freelancer on Fiverr to do this for you. This is not the highest quality website in the world, but it is really quick. And the best part is it was able to just go on my laptop without me telling it, go and look for the logo for the community, and then slap that on, know to use it on the web page. And that was all done with pretty much minimal planning, by the way. I told it, don't worry about planning, just give it your best shot. And its best shot was the first shot, and that was good enough, at least for my use case. I would say it's exceptional at the 80-20. Your expertise, the word now is taste. Your taste is needed for the 20. And that's where the value is. Because if anyone tells you these are 100%, they're lying to you. Because language models are predictive in nature. And as you bloat context, as you provide not 100% perfect direction, these will hallucinate or they will make assumptions that are not true. But for the engineers that I know, the IT people that I know, that are really solid in their domain and like they know their foundations inside and out, once they marry that with this agentic workflow, then you get to offload, kind of outsource your information and your tacit knowledge, feed it to the AI, and then you can live in a very different world. So if I were to show you my other screen here, I have 3 screens. I have 26 terminals open. Now, some people will go on X and YouTube as like that would be a flex. But for me, I've now been able to think in workflows. So I know how many tasks I can run mutually exclusively that are not interdependent, which ones are interdependent, and I know which ones will take a while. So I'll have one set of terminals that I know will take 3-4 hours to get to my 80. Then I'll go in and I'll inject my 20. And by the end of the day, most days, I complete more in a day than people complete in a week in terms of like things I can check off my list that are actually behemoth tasks. So this is not something to be taken lightly rather. So the agentic loop again is observe, think, act, and evaluate. The evaluate part is where your taste comes in. This is where, for example, I have my own what's called a slash command. Again, that's a proxy for an automation where when I do a security review on a code base, it's not Claude Code's version. It's our version, my agency's version, especially when it comes to SOC 2 GPDR. We've injected all the things we look for in a code base. And even when it says all tests pass, I'm still skeptical. So I'll still push and I'll look at different parts of the code base. But we will get to a point where it's not going to even be 80, it'll be maybe 90. You'll still need that 10% as a top 1% of your skill set to audit that, but things are changing very quickly. The average context window right now that's affordable, that makes sense fiscally, is 200,000 tokens. For the sake of this conversation, you can assume that 200,000 tokens is equal to words, even though it's plus or minus, depending on what those tokens are. And beyond that, memory and context are both being worked on. So Anthropic released 2 weeks ago a 1 million context for Opus, that's one of their models, and Sonnet, another one of their models. And memory, 12 hours ago, was updated in Claude Code so that it's persistent memory in a project, and they're trying to create their own versions of many startups that have tried to index on creating RAG for memory. So overnight, there's this adage of startups being killed with brand new updates. And unfortunately, like, that is the case. So if you're trying to solve a narrow problem that isn't resolved, yet, I have a conspiracy theory, and I might be right. It might be proven right in the future. I have a theory that these companies actually have models that are 2-3 generations ahead, like an Opus 7 or an Opus 6, and they use those to ship their products and updates today. It would make sense, right? If you were a model provider, why wouldn't you have an unfair advantage? Because you have to do anyway security and QA to make sure it's good for 6 months red teaming before it goes out in the wild. So it's not wild to extrapolate that they have much smarter models than what we have access to as consumers. And they don't have as many guardrails. So this will not stop going fast because if I'm right, and they are at least one generation ahead, they can just ship at a rate where this landscape will change so quickly that the technology will move under your feet faster than you can even imagine. So understanding the foundational layers is really helpful because this paradigm won't change very much. It's what's involved in each one that will change depending on the version. So Claude Code, obviously you can look that up if you're not as familiar, but it's CLI native. It has full code base access if you want it to. MCP servers, again, are a little bit passe. Now skills are the more token efficient version. Recently, they've released something called multi-agent teams, which has been very interesting to play with. For code, it's mediocre because as you add multiple cooks in the kitchen, many times the code doesn't end up better. You just end up with a lot of code, but code doesn't compile per se. But I found it to be insanely powerful for non-technical tasks. So we recently sent an RFP last week. It was 62 pages. 80% of those pages were made by an agent team. And when it comes to the copy, when it had all of our reference material and all our prior RFPs and our case studies and the way I write, it did an incredible job in 4 or 5 hours. It took, I think, 500,000 tokens, which is not a small number of tokens, but in terms of time saved, it was incredible. So like Claude Code for non-technical tasks, in my opinion, is breathtaking. For code, it's great for the 80/20 still. And when it comes to skills, like on my actual computer right now, if I were to open up my flooded terminals, I have skills for Gmail that I've built myself from scratch, where it's a series of Python functions. It navigates my entire Gmail. It can move emails. It can read 4 or 5 in bulk. It can label them. It can auto organize. It can do everything that I want it to. Um, LinkedIn posts. I have a slash command. It's called LinkedIn post. I'll click it. I will yap for 10 minutes about what it is that I'm inspired by today. It will take that, look through all my last posts to see my tonality and my direction of posting, create the copy, make an image with Gemini, strip out any AI metadata so LinkedIn doesn't think it's an AI generated image, and then I have everything ready to go. So the world of hyper productivity is already here. It's not coming. It's just a matter of you being able to upskill yourself to take advantage of it. MCPs, I won't spend too much time. They were and still are a gateway to get to a backend, but end of the day, an MCP server is purely a wrapper on top of a Python function. It's just a wrapper that made it easy for applications to not go through as much OAuth to do what they need to do, but by nature that makes them less secure. These two paradigms have shifted how I work in the last month and a half. We used to just have this thing called a sub-agent. And if you're not as familiar with the architecture, a sub-agent is a workhorse. It's a workhorse that works in parallel. So you give it task, it diverts, it doesn't take your context window from your conversation. It has its own virgin context window. It takes task, executes it, and comes back with a result. But there's no communication between these sub-agents. Agent teams, this is weeks old, they have a very cute infrastructure. They have a series of inboxes that are all in JSON. As they complete tasks, they leave messages in each other's inboxes, which are on your computer, all in like a root folder. So they even have a Kanban board where they can tell which tasks are blocked by which agents. So this is brand new, like 3 weeks ago, and I'm telling you, it's amazing for non-technical tasks. Let's fast forward 4 months from now, right? Because each month is like a year in development. 4 or 5 months from now, this will be an old feature. We'll probably have like agent organizations. And I say that somewhat semi-jokingly, but we might have agent organizations where now it's a full top-down, you have CEO, you have C-suite, you have all of these different layers, because a lot of case studies have studied that the way organizations have already been structured works really well for agents. Agents do need a dictator and a manager. They need different tiers of control versus just a flat organization. So architecture of the future is you have a team lead, you'll have teammates, you'll have a shared task list, you might have some version of a mailbox, and this allows broadcasts, because what happens is when these agents work, if they're blocked, they try to send a message to the other agent. And right now it's still cute, meaning it's working, it does decently well sometimes, but many other times you could have just done the same task faster without them. It really depends on the task at hand. So we're just getting to the point where you can build real systems, not demos. There's 900 plus people in the community that I have, right? And I get DMs at least once a week saying, we just closed X amount funding for this new idea we had. We went from like a prototype to something MVP in like a week and a half just using Claude Code. That's a great story. Other people are like, I was able to get my financial life together because I was able to just let it go free to all my CSVs of my bank statements and all that stuff and come up with a full financial plan. There's very few boundaries where this can't infuse productivity, which is why I'm being more conveying that urgency to you to at least take a look at it, irrespective of the provider or the platform. Now, recently, just as a little example, I created this thing called Claude Claw, very creative version of OpenClaw, which took the world by storm. But if you are familiar at all with OpenClaw, I went through the entire code base with my actual eyes, not just Claude. Frankenstein, shocking, very cool to tinker with. but not like it's nothing that could ever be enterprise grade. So I was bothered enough that I went and built my own framework, which allows me to use my phone on the go to just interact using an agent SDK to Claude Code on my computer that has, isolated access to certain projects and repositories, and I can run things on the go. I can execute workflows on the go. I can run a 4 or 5 hour process, again, from a voice note on Telegram. I can even send a video showing it on a piece of paper what process I'm trying to do, and then we'll execute that as a workflow. Is this experimental? Highly. This was built in the last 7 days, and I'm still pushing it every day. But we are in that age where you can go from thought to outcome much quicker, and that won't change anytime soon. And that's kind of like what this slide is about. So you go from installing Claude Code to, if you're not familiar with what a Claude MD is, this is also known as an agent MD. This is basically the air traffic control center of Claude. These are the grounding principles that every single chat that you have, it auto injects context to allow it to know exactly where you're heading and what the repo that you're talking about is in pertains to. Then you can layer on skills, and the beauty of skills that they're just invoked, just in time. You can add a skill for everything, creating a PowerPoint, creating an Excel file, auditing a database, everything you can imagine. And I know for time we're not doing too well, so I won't do any form of demo, but just as an example, this morning I woke up and now I started opening up on my terminal. I created a skill for it. Hey, pull up my WhatsApp chats. Okay, great. And I'll dictate what my responses to my 5 WhatsApp chats are. Great. Send those. Number 2, send tax advice to someone on WhatsApp that I haven't spoken to in 4 or 5 days. I've missed her message. So bring up her whole thread. I'll give you a whole dictation. Send it over. Coordinated with Daniel about this talk. So I read his messages. It recommended to me what I should talk about and how I should structure it. Then I took my conversation with Daniel and I auto-injected it, and I told it, great, can you open my slides folder and use my slides skill to create the very set of slides that you're looking at right now. So these slides, all of them, were generated with Claude Code with the only context of my conversation with Daniel. Just to show you the non-technical nature here, the use cases are insane and the productivity is insane. One last example before I kind of hand over. I just taught 2 days ago for O'Reilly Media a 5-hour course called Claude Code for Everyone. And that course took me probably 5 hours to put together the first time because I had to think through, that's the taste. How am I going to structure this in a way where it's additive? I don't bore people. Where do I inject the right demo at the right time? How do I organize the GitHub in a way where it makes sense? I did the hard work once. They've asked me to make another course for something different. I drafted an entire set of the entire deck I spent hours on, every GitHub repo I did for the first course for this new one, in an hour. So we're getting to the age where when you build it once and you create an SOP for it, that SOP can now be replicated at scale with agentic workflows. So we're in the age of like, not infinite leverage, again, that would be an exaggeration, but very high levels of leverage. So you do it once. If you do a task more than twice in the same way, it should become a skill. More than four or five times, it should become a slash command where it's slash LinkedIn post executes a whole process where it has a human in the loop element to bring you in, take your input, and go from there. So with that, I'm just going to push forward. Daniel already mentioned this. The one thing we've been working on is, for me, money's cool, and obviously it's needed for life and salvation. But one thing that we're doing is for members of our community who are level 5, that's a proxy for a lot of contributions in the community, or on the annual. We're launching this network that launches in March 5th. We've been working on it for 4 months, where we take no commissions on both sides, and we just want to give people a chance who are at the cutting edge, because the whole point of my community is called early AI-dopters for a reason, is to give them a fighting chance in this very hard to navigate market, especially in the job sphere, to take on gig work that hopefully turns into something more impactful than that. And with that, thank you. Sorry if I went over. Hopefully that was informative.
It's amazing. So, but before we go into Q&A, thank you, Mark. So think back, like this event started as 8th birthday of Serverless Toronto community. but it's not about us. Like I believe into high mind, like that 1+1 is 3, not 2. So Yulia comes from Data Management Association in Toronto. That's a group, it's pay to play, but you meet wonderful people, learn a lot. Then you have AI Thinkers. It's a free community, like I attend one in Toronto, but you meet wonderful people like Zayyan and many more. And then your AI-dopter community, it's again pay-to-play community, but every dollar is worth it. So thank you, Mark, for allowing me to be part of that community and coming here, all of you. So now I can stay longer. I don't know about you. Please open the Q&A. If you have questions for anybody, I can start like as an icebreaker, maybe first with Yulia because you were the first. Yulia, like your talk about business analysis in the AI it reminds me of the RPA, robotic automation, business process automation workflows. Like in your experience, what can go wrong in the business process automation, like when it falls off the rail, like if it is old is new again, but it's now AI automation. So
yeah, thank you for the question, Daniel. I think that if you think about the business process, right, and a company trying to save money, they would say, okay, this step takes us too long, let's automate it, or let's put RPA on it, or let's do something else with it. And sometimes someone jumps on the task and quickly automates it, and it now runs faster, but it may turn out that that step wasn't even necessary. And that's something that gets missed. For example, if you live in a corporate world, you know how over years all these processes become overgrown with extra steps because of politics, because of influence, because this person wants to have a signature over here and their enemy in the other department wants to have their own approval over there. And those SOPs grow to ridiculous proportions, and all of those SOPs and inefficient process is in all the software. And you get someone on automating it and they bake it in, and now it's automated to the point that you'll never change it because now you spend $100,000 on running a project to develop and test it, right? Where you need to come in is to go back to that process and say what is really necessary here to deliver the product, the service, to keep the customer happy, and get rid of the extra steps before you automate them. And I think that's what we have to always think. There's so many amazing automation possibilities, but what should be automated and what should we get rid of and what we should keep, I think that's the triage that needs to happen. And I don't know if anyone had any experience along those lines.
Thank you.
It's a real challenge because if you look at organizations, especially large, not just financial organizations, the processes are ancient. They are like 5, 10, 15 years in place, and if you just automate it as is, it's what do you get out of it? I mean, do you just make it faster, and you probably things will get exposed much faster that there was a problem or there was a challenge along the way. But how do you and the task often at hand is like you look at the process, you need to enhance the process, you have to change the process, especially with the tools that we have today. That's it's a very maybe that's an undertaking. Build an agentic AI that will take an existing process and propose better ways or like more efficient ways to actually do things and different scenarios. I mean, it's so that's I mean that's what I experience pretty much like currently and on many projects.
Thank you. And like, unfortunately, like many of you will have to go in 10, 11 minutes. So maybe
Yes.
next question for Zayyan, just to kick it off. And then, like with your platform, like objection can be like there are other tools to do LLM as a judge. And how do you deflect that? Like, why is your approach better?
Yeah, definitely. So my goal is not to replace existing incumbents. In fact, we integrate with LangGraph and Langsmith. But the idea is to actually integrate into that. So you have your multiple evaluations, and we're one of those evaluations. And that's the key. It's okay, you have your GDPR compliance, you have your alignment with your company knowledge base. But what is missing is that alignment with your decisions, how you would actually make a decision. That's something that no one really has available out of the box. You can maybe kind of try and program it, but we're aligned with that work that's been done by the Centaur team, really, where we're trying to push forward the state of the art there to be able to have it so that it actually can think like you do. And that's really the idea there. It's not about a commercial discussion where we're trying to say, okay, buy this today. It's more we're trying to push forward that state of the art, and that's actually feeding into some of the other work that we're doing, other projects that we're doing, so that we kind of selfishly also have a handle or a pulse on what is the state of the art. So I think I mentioned before, I'm a founder as well. And for example, one of our apps that we're developing is called Talk to Me. And that's where you actually have a link in bio. And as an individual, it can chat for you. So by having the ability to actually know that this digital representative or digital, you could say, clone can act like you, that is something that is really differentiated from, okay, I'm getting a chat GPT wrapper and I'm giving it some knowledge base. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to push beyond what's available while using what's available in the best of breed to give us the basic capabilities.
Thank you. Thank you. And for Mark, I don't have a question. It's still mind-blowing experience when we chatted what you're going to talk about. And then I see slide decks like an hour later. So I'll let anybody else who's not part of your community to ask questions. So if the floor is open, I'll look for money coupons next. So open your mics and start shooting questions to whoever. Don't be shy.
I'm really curious about the multi-claw that you're doing, Mark, because yeah, definitely I've been experimenting with OpenClaw. I'd love to know, have you tried integrating it with any kind of Slack or maybe even your Discord community? So it's really like operating on like how many are running at the same time, as an example? I'd love to even know that as a baseline, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so again, this is a 7-day-old project. It's a pretty popular one in the community. But right now, I can send a message to Slack, Discord, WhatsApp, iMessage, and I have a series, like a tier of context. So I say, hey, can you message my assistant for this? And then it knows, oh, assistant lives in Slack, name in Slack is this. So I've created that repository. It can execute anything that Claude can execute because all it's doing is it's sending a command through the cloud to write the word Claude in my terminal and then execute something. So if I say, can you spin up an agent team to quickly put together a proposal for the client that I just met with? Go and check Fireflies. Okay, I'll go invoke the Fireflies skill, go to your end file in the cloud to look at your credentials for Fireflies. I'll read the transcript. I'll put together a PDF. I'll send it to you for review in Telegram. And if you give me the okay, I will use your Gemini skill to go and send it to the same email that was the one on the Fireflies. Is that the right one, by the way? And I say, yes, go. So to me, I'm trying to make it every single task that I would put off. So for example, proposals, I'm awful at sending a proposal. It takes me like 3-4 days, then I over engineer it, and then by that time, the person's already forgotten about me. So now from call to proposal is 5 minutes because it's just we've talked about the numbers on the call anyway. It's just putting everything together and showing that I heard them. So, and that's one thing. And then now I've been experimenting with multiple Telegram assistants. So the same way you can run different terminals, you can spin up multiple bots that all have access to their own terminal. So now I can execute that at scale. One could be working on, the slide for this conversation. One could be working on going back and forth with my assistant, and one could be checking my email, for example. So that's the kind of the current evolution of it.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely looking forward to trying it out.
Right on, man.
When you mentioned that the feedback loop was having a good SOP so that the next iteration will be better, what format is that SOP? Is it just Markdown or is it a special? No. Okay, what is it?
Pure Markdown. So
Oh, it is.
I absolutely hate the way you wrote that email. It sounded like AI. You had an M dash in there. I never want to see this ever again. Okay, sounds good. I just updated my skill to never have M dashes, and I just took the snippet of the thing as an example of something not to do. That's what it would do. So that's where like you can win in the iterations. So I would say from the birth and gestation period to a mature skill could be a week of using it and giving it active feedback. And at that point, it could be like 95% of the way there. It can really replicate that workflow or what you're trying to do.
You don't have to wait for me. Mic's open. Feel free to shoot to anybody.
All good. If someone has questions, feel free to shoot it over because I'll have to leave right on time.
Anything in the chat, John?
No, I don't believe so.
I'm looking for coupons, so I will drop 8 coupons for mining. But in order to be first one, like to act, you have to have the product ready. So you probably know what books you want to learn from next. So.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize the questions here, but I got another one for you, Mark. So I actually am looking to deploy this for one of my clients, that multi-Slack agent. Now, one thing that I came into was the cognitive load piece, where we're going to bring this team on board, and I think you already do that. You actually getting them, they're going to use Cloud Code, and they're going to start implementing that actual workflow. But within their Slack, instead of having multiple agents, I think OpenCall also does that. We're going to abstract away those multiple agents and just have one chief of staff. So I'd like to understand your approach on how you want to like communicate what's happening behind the scenes and what not to communicate, so that's a little easier for people to adopt and onboard.
Yeah, number one thing is, at least for businesses, don't start with agents. Because as soon as you go into agents, you go into combinatorial problems, combinatorial hallucinations, and then a lack of transparency as to what's happening. So agents, at least in this your example, Slack, literally I just got that question yesterday. And then I asked, cool, what are we trying to accomplish? Like what's the task here? And I outlined the task. And I'm like, that could be accomplished with one singular agent on its own. It doesn't need a team. Why do you need a, I don't know, copywriter? Why can't it go through a iterative loop to look at its own copy and just adjust it, taking on a new hat? So for me, it's like I give the example of imagine you're starting a brand new company and you have no funding and you barely have any cash. Would you hire an employee or would you take on the task yourself until you're really kind of like burnt out and you're making enough ROI slash money to hire someone else? I do that with agents because also they are expensive to run from a token perspective. So if I'm going to add and onboard 2, 3, 4 agents, there should be an amazing reason why I'm hiring a brand new person, and I should have a defined list of tasks where there's no overlap. Because the thing that happens with agents is when you have 4 or 5, they start communicating to each other, and you look at their comms, it's inefficient. Sometimes they focus on the big picture and not the nuances that move the things forward. So then their instructions start to like create a domino effect of slightly wrong actions. And then you go from from taking a boat from the west coast, or sorry, the east coast of Canada to Europe, but you're 1 degree off. But imagine now each agent is 1 degree off. Look at where you end up, right? So they veer. So I'm very careful with agents. I'll use them in Claude Code because when it's a big hairy problem, like, hey, client just asked us if this is possible. Let's look at all these APIs, spin up a couple agent teams to brainstorm. That's a cool use case because I don't care about the comms. I don't care about the quality of the comms. There's no interdependency on the comms. I like the fact that they're all working together and I only have me. So the agents, I still think we're 3 months away from such good tool calling and such good orchestration that they can actually be well executed.
I don't know if you remember HeyGen way back in the day. They're like, yeah, I have like an office full of agents, and it just like did not work at all. So probably still not there yet for a little while. But yeah, great feedback.
My pleasure.
So we have 1 more minute of Mark. I can stay as long as you want.
I have a
Anybody
question,
else?
Mark. It's more of a social question. So you mentioned that you write your LinkedIn posts using AI. How do you feel when someone responds using AI?
Awful. It's just such garbage because like for me it's me plus the AI. So I talk for 15 minutes and it knows to keep like 60% of my actual words and like what I'm trying to convey, but just organize it and do the whole LinkedIn thing where you put like the Unicode arrows and stuff like that. That's all it does. But it's my heart, my soul is in there. But like most of AI generated comments are soulless bots that say, wow, that's a real trailblazing comment. This really changes the industry. And then you just see that and you kind of like lose respect for the person by proxy. So I would be very careful with AI generated comments because they just dilute from your perceived brand. We're already going to enter a world where 80% of the internet will be AI agents and bots. At least be human if that's what you're good at. That would be my fallback there.
Doesn't that apply to LinkedIn posts too then?
If they are soulless, yes. If they're devoid of soul. So it's
Okay.
like, take the mess in my head, organize it. That's pretty simple. But it's not go and create a thought for me and make me look
Yeah.
smart and then create the LinkedIn post.
Thanks.
Danilo, you have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Or you just raised hand by accident. You're on mute, Danilo.
Hi, just a quick question to Mark. You accomplish a lot of work in a very short time now, thanks to these augmentations. I've never used Cloud Code. I'm considering doing that. I was checking out their price plans. Would you be able to provide a sort of ballpark figure how much this very productive morning cost you in terms of tokens and
Sure. Now
dollar?
I'm like a superhuman user. Like so I'm the other extreme. I would say to use Claude Code properly, like and get actual ROI out of it, the $100 USD plan is the middle ground where it's okay. $200 if you're a heavy developer and like you crank out code all the time, you have multiple projects, you need to do multiple things in parallel. $20 a toy. You will run one command with Opus, the best model, and you will lose all your credits. So that one is like adorable. If you want to use Haiku with that to extend its shelf life, you can. But with Haiku, like the quality of the code is much more degraded. If you want best bang for your buck, it would be anti-gravity. They have a decent free tier and some access to these models. The one thing you'll notice though is if you use Claude models without the Claude harness, there's something missing. There's this spark that's missing from the agent and the workflow. So um, if it financially makes sense for you, the $100 is where I would start with Claude Code if you are a technical person.
Mark, I know you have to go, but like the other way around is true. I would like to bring Gemini into Cloud Code, and I hate running them in parallel. I would like that spark of Cloud Code. I know you use MCP for Nano Banana. Like, how do you access Gemini models? Because I like their architecture reasoning better than
Yeah,
Claude.
so I have a YouTube video coming out next week. So I made a skill for the GPT-3 5.3 model and a skill for Gemini. So when I want to make a front end, I will make Claude Code use Gemini's API to come up with the specs for the front end and have Claude Code execute the front end. Because Claude is amazing at writing the code. It just sometimes needs to be steered how it should write the code. So yeah.
So specking is amazing, guys. If you need to validate your architectures, you just go through Gemini. I use chat interface, but thank you for automating.
My pleasure.
Any other questions, guys? I can stay. I share the coupons. Love to see you here. It was good, this celebration of 4 communities, not 1. Congrats, Mark, on your first anniversary of community. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
I will see you wherever I see you, online, offline. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Mark.
I can stay.
Pleasure, everybody. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Yeah. I can stay. We can continue.
Well. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye, Zayyan. You're staying. Okay, cool. He's going to. Okay. So,
sorry, if we still have Yulia. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still going if you want.
Cool. A quick one. I actually really like the idea of using AI as an augmentation for some of the processes, some of the humans. It seems to me the world is not going this way. Today, there was an article in the Financial Times that Block and Jack Dorsey, the Twitter co-founder, is letting go 40% of their employing power. That's 4,000 people, because the other 6,000 is going to be so productive that they can replace that 40%. So, and this is not the one. This is from today. But if you look at the past few weeks, the CEO mindset is absolutely on replacing humans with AI. So I believe AI is not the end all to everything, but it's just my belief. I really wish that the augmentation you mentioned would be a human-centric, useful outcome of this whole AI hype. But there's a question in there somewhere. So my question is, what do you think? How can we influence our CEOs, our managers, our businesses to slow down a bit, do that actual analyzing that you mentioned before they jump on solutions, especially with the tools coming out every day? And anything you decide, yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah, I know. It's very hard. I know there's a big question somewhere, and going to, reading, because as I was listening to Mark and all of those things he does, I had a headache just by listening to him, right? Because it sounds like, yeah, maybe if you're doing it every day, you know it, but it sounds like you experience cognitive load just setting this up and then just monitoring it, and as a result, doing so many things. So I was reading recently, and I read a lot about AI, but also in anti-AI. I'm trying to look at both sides of it and the human thing, because again, I'm kind of on the side of humans, even though I love automation and I love technology. But I was reading that a lot of companies and a lot of employees now say that their life has becoming harder because they're being pushed to use AI every single minute of their day. They're measured on how they use AI. There are metrics now that literally count, whatever. I don't know how many tokens you used or how many times you used an agent. And people get really depressed and feeling harassed by this expectation that now they will be using AI, and they're forced to become more and more efficient because that's the CEO expectation, and it becomes a bit of a vicious loop. So if I'm thinking of me 20, 30 years ago, and if you imagine in the future, and people will have to work less and enjoy life more because there will be more technology. Now, here is my question. Is all this AI making everybody to work even harder and being even more stressed? Because first of all, they're measured on it. And secondly, every single minute of my day now can be monitored to the minute point. And everything I do can be analyzed and reanalyzed. So I think that it's not just a conversation of, people within organizations, even though that's important. It needs to be bigger conversation, on big platforms, and there needs to be a conversation about ethical AI and ethical use of AI in organizations at a bigger level. Because, frankly, when we're chasing this extreme efficiency, we are kind of, we're chasing impossible, and we are forgetting that everybody is a person and they all deserve to live a good life and maybe have a 4-day. If we have all of these tools and we are not able to have 4-day work week, then I kind of say, what's the point of AI? Isn't it supposed to make everybody's life easier? So I think that people who understand AI most, people like you, because I'm not as technical as this circle here, I think that's contribution that needs to also come from technical community, not just hyping up all the amazing stuff AI can do and how I can answer 25,000 emails in the morning and write all these posts. Because frankly, I don't want to go to LinkedIn anymore because there's nothing to read anymore, right? And all of those pictures in garish colors are just like kind of, driving me nuts. Now I want to look at wildflowers. But the technical people have to speak up and have to stay human and remind everybody else that it's still about humans. And, by the way, what was it that recent? I think McKinsey recent research said that only 7% or 5% of all agentic projects actually give back ROI. Everything else is a waste, right? So having that balance, I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I think just to your point, Yulia. This is like everybody's being forced to become Hans Zimmer, right? Like essentially that is what Mark was talking about. Like he's becoming the orchestrator who knows what all the floor is playing, all the musical instruments, everybody. It could be 100 musicians in front of him, and everybody's being, like to your point, everybody's being forced to become Hans Zimmer. Nobody's in the audience actually, like in enjoying Hans Zimmer's music, right? I think that is the cognitive overload maybe you're talking about.
Yes.
It's like everybody has like It's like 10,000 Hans Zimmer. That can't happen,
Yes.
right? Like it's like normal physics, essentially, if you want to talk about it. But again, this is the thing. Like I'm not saying that whatever Mark is producing is AI sloppy. Whatever he's doing is like quite interesting and definitely can be built on. It is very useful, and some part of it is definitely very useful. But again, that's where you draw that line, right? This is I mean it's like stock market is hype driven. This is also hype driven. Like to his point, you have CEOs looking at their bottom line, thinking that they can reduce like workers in their company because human salaries are the highest capex, right? It's to a startup or a company, anybody, and like tokens are cheap. Essentially, is what you think. But that's where that's happening. And again, going back to your talk, particularly, like I think I'm developing into insurance and using AI for insurance. People just don't. There's a lot of inertia in there, and those business processes need to be understood. There is no skill for insurance again, like you talked about, but like those business processes need to be understood even for insurance claims. There are certain augmentations that you can do for people. You can maybe get a claim payout faster. Maybe you don't have to wait 2 months for you file a claim and get paid. Like that's where you see the difference, and that is where the tangible difference happens, rather than again everybody becoming Hans Zimmer, right? I don't know. I mean that's what I feel about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's well put. Like I missed last night AI Thinkers event. I was preparing for this, but the meeting before, everybody was pitching their work. Everybody feels 10x. Like if we were crazy scientists before, now we feel like Tony Starks with our AI Iron Man suit. And like it was weird. Like they were competing for my attention because everybody was selling something. So that's a good observation, Nikhil. I couldn't
Yeah, I mean,
vocalize it, but it felt strange.
no, I always I don't know. This is what always if you've looked at like 20 Blade Runner 2048 and kind of things, right? Like all the sci-fi futuristic movies, there's always these big neon signs. You're standing in the Times Square and like you're getting all these neon signs, all trying to sell you things, and everybody's like using AI kind of thing, right? It's overwhelming, right? That's the kind of thing that I often think about.
Yes,
I
but
don't know.
changing. You were talking about influencing executives, like so. So it's similar to asking scientists not to work on war products like or bombs or it's it's a fine balance for people whether to pay the bill or what to do. And even if we do that, I think it's above our pay grade. Like I grew up in East Europe, in Yugoslavia. There is a societal organization has to be different, so that we are not incentivized by profits, but kind of living part for social justice, social systems. But that's a different topic. Like it's coming to the politics, but the change is there to use the money for good, and then we don't need to work. We can do what we do best: talk to one another, play music, paint, fish, whatever we want to do. But that is so far apart with our reality in capitalism.
Agreed. I mean, at least I mean, the one thing I took away from Mark's talk particularly is that like he's lit the. I mean, I'm not saying go to that level, superhuman level, but even the spark that he's lit and like the no BS reality that he's talked about, or where people are, right? I think that's important to just. It's great for Daniel and I mean John to platform him essentially because that is also needed at this stage. So yeah, I think that's. I'll definitely go and read more on his work and what was possible, but use it in a more tangible way. Again, back to Yulia's point, some tangible result, financial tangible time, some metric that is actually uh, uh, is saved and enhanced through that. Yeah.
If you think about like generally like I guess the value of AI, I know we hear a lot about using AI to manage your appointments and write your LinkedIn posts and manage your calendar and all of those, but all of that is just infrastructure, right? It's infrastructure that is supposed to help you to bring value, like make kindergartens cheaper, bring everyone healthy food, make sure people don't work 60 hours a day, give mothers time to spend with their children and still have a career and manage that. Fix the bloody subway in Toronto that works only half of the time. So if you think about it, so much hype about efficiency and all this digital intangible stuff. Who is taking care of life and human needs and people? And I think that honestly, even though I live in technology, but I constantly have this cognitive dissonance with too much emphasis on what, making slash LinkedIn post and everything suddenly fills up, but LinkedIn posts don't feed anyone. And if you go back and look newspapers and look at other problems in the world, there are so many other problems in the world. So I think that's a big challenge to AI community and technology community. Hive is still solving the problems of the world.
Well put.
For me, this is the perfect ending for today.
Yes.
I mean, I think this is
palette cleanser, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, we can talk more, but I'm just gonna write this down or something. One thing I wanted to mention is we are definitely hyping AI over in it compared to its real value. I went through a few hype cycles in my life. I was there building crypto development for years. I was in fintech beforehand. But just to give you one parallel, about 10 years ago, everyone and their mom promised me that we'll have self-driving cars on the roads in 2 to 5 years. Did we get better cars? Yes, we did. I drove a car with what's it called? The adaptive cruise control, which was awesome, right? That came in the past 10 years, but we still don't have the fully self-driving cars, and we won't have them in the next 2 to 5 years. At least that's not the current hype. So for me, this hype will solve a bunch of real issues, hopefully. And at the end, we'll get back to Julia's message that we still need to find that value, that human part that we want to, really represent, and not just add more infrastructure.
We are criticizing AI, and I was using it to find a video from 2018 when I fell in love with fast AI. That was before generative AI, Jeremy Howard. I posted his video. And now, like Google has Ask feature in YouTube, where you can ask it, where was this part that he talked about dystopian future? And I'm just pasting there. So at the same time, we are afraid, but benefiting from not having to watch the full video. Just talk to it, point to me.
No, it's great. No, it's again back to Yulia's point. Like I think just combining what Mark did to Yulia's point, right? Like it is very good, and I'm using it for. I mean, I'm a big history buff, so I'm using it to identify patterns back in human history, and text and maps through that, right? So it's very AI is very useful to find patterns in there, right? Like you showed with and there was a talk about radiologists being replaced with AI and stuff, right? I think that's the analogy you're going for. It's AI is very useful for that. And I love that when you said AI in the loop. Nobody talks about that. Everybody talks about human in the loop, but AI in the loop is actually the thing that everybody should talk about. So that's great for that, like what Daniel did right now. But yeah, this I don't intend to be Hans Zimmer again. I'm very I'm very happy I'm very happy talking in this platform. I'm very happy sitting in the audience in front of Hans Zimmer. Maybe I'll do something else in some other.
No, but the thing is, Nikhil, the thing is like the reality of the things that are happening around you are kind of gonna push you in that direction. That's what's happening. So basically, it's kind of like the same example that I think thousands of people have already used of the horse carts and all of that.
Yeah,
like cars
recently.
replace horse carts and everything. So if everyone is driving a car, you're probably even if you love horses and you love riding them and whatever, you're gonna end up driving a car because of the efficiency. And it's kind of like the same. And I think one of the points that I feel personally, see, I have been a knowledge worker for the last 15 years. I've enjoyed the benefits of the barrier to entry. Like you do an engineering degree, you basically have some skills that you've spent 4 years, and now you're kind of like, you've created a barrier of that knowledge, and now you're using it, earning money and everything. AI suddenly like smashed that barrier because now
Yeah.
you don't really need that. Now, when like say for example, people are talking about like taste and judgment. A lot of people had taste and judgment, but they didn't have the skills to actually deliver something. AI is now enabling them to do it. Like say for
Yes.
example, if it's images
100%.
or coding or whatever, they had the taste and the judgment, but they didn't have the skills or the time to actually do something useful. So AI is actually helping them. But another thing that I think about,
100%. Agreed.
uh,
Yeah.
what I think is, like, think about the people who were not knowledge workers. So I think knowledge workers have enjoyed a life where they have always been kind of like, oh, I'm thinking about something, I'm working on something. So they'll like spend 8 hours sitting in the room and like working on something, while a blue collar person would be like toiling in the
Yeah. In
rain and
this.
the heat and
Yeah.
whatever. So now I think with AI coming in, it kind of like puts knowledge workers in that same kind of a basket where now your labor is kind of more important rather than just using your intellect and saying, oh, I've worked for 8 hours, even though probably you scroll LinkedIn
It's a
for
good
2 hours
point.
in there. So, so I think it's kind of like an equalizer from what I see. Like I'm a knowledge worker, but I feel that there has been a lot of kind of like this, just like using knowledge as a way to kind of earn money, even though you were not actually putting in everything that you had got. But being a like a blue
It's a
collar
very
worker,
good
you
point.
have to actually like lift up that tool, do something. Like say for example, the house is not gonna just build by thinking. You have to actually move your hands and
Yeah.
do something. So yeah, so to me, I think all the knowledge workers are kind of like feeling this kind of heat where, oh no, we don't like AI. What about other things in the world and this and that? But I think yeah, it kind of like equalizes some of the things that were not equal, and the knowledge workers have to
It's
actually put
it,
in
it,
more
dem-
work.
it democratizes that. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That's a very good point. It does democratize it.
Yeah, that's my thinking on it. Like
No,
No,
I've thought
I
about
agreed. Yeah.
good,
yeah.
good. So maybe we should wrap up before 2.
Yeah.
I know John is in
Yeah.
the office, has to
Mhm.
drive.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Any closing
Nice
thoughts,
chat.
Julia, our guest, John?
I'm good. I think I've said my piece.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
presenting.
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks,
much, Yulia.
everyone. Yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Ciao.
Have a
everyone.
good one, guys. Bye.